be here, and an incredible privilege to stand in front of you today. A very happy day, a momentous day, an auspicious day for all of you here, graduates and postgraduates, the award winners from various categories, and the proud parents. You've done really exceedingly well and have made your parents and family very, very proud. So, whilst I was reflecting as to what I should be sharing, the messages that I could be sharing with all of you today, I thought I'd touch upon the importance of trust and ethics, underline what is communication and how communication is so important in our healthcare, human values, and how I would define success. In ancient Indian culture, from time immemorial, particularly this applies in rural India, where more than 70% of our population reside, doctors are equated with God. And therefore, on this auspicious occasion, I would like to invoke the blessings of Dhanvantri, who is the Hindu god of medicine, and the ancient Sanskrit philosophy which states that Vaidyo Narayano Hari, which means that when a disease affects mankind, the doctor is Lord Narayana and Lord Hari himself. Ours is a noble profession, and an important component of the Hippocratic Oath is to keep the good of the patient as the highest priority. And in this context, having graduated 31 years ago, I would like to share with you some of the messages that you might find useful. The first and foremost is trust. The patients place their life in your hands, and this is an incredible trust. They disclose confidential information that they may or may not have shared even with their close family members. They subject themselves to be examined by you and even operated by you, a stranger, a total stranger. So this trust in capital letters must be greatly valued and safeguarded. I would also add that in no other profession this level of trust is given to a doctor on a daily basis. And therefore, we must have a higher moral code of conduct. And we must never ever forget the privileged position that we are in. And I would like to simultaneously talk about the importance of ethics. You've just heard about the Hippocratic Oath. But I'd like to just read out a poem in Telugu, in my mother tongue, which I will just explain in English. Neeti lekunna jagati vikyati ledu, neeti lekunna madiki sampriti ledu, neeti lekunna atmaki jyoti ledu, ediyunu neeti kela saati radu manasa. What it means is, however good you may be, however great you may be, however intelligent you may be, however skilled you may be, however talented you may be, if however rich you may be, at the end of the day, if you are not ethical in your approach to life, not just ethical in medicine, if you are not ethical in your general approach to life, whatever success you might have achieved means absolutely nothing at all. And this is something that I remind myself on a daily basis. And so there's a lot of room in this place, in this field. There's no competition, very little competition to be a good human being. And I think it's very important at the end of the day that we should be good human beings in addition to being good doctors as well. Another point that I'd like to share with you is about the rat race. Very soon, those of you who have just graduated will come out. Some of you will do post-graduation. but eventually you will get into practice or you will be working in academic institutions. We must always remind ourselves that the practice of the art and science of medicine is not meant to be competitive, but it is very common to be sucked into the never-ending race of private practice. You must be acutely conscious of this fact that you are not in a race. The rat race is for rats. It's not for us. And we must remind ourselves, whatever may be the circumstances, never to stoop down to unethical practices in this noble profession. Unfortunately, some of us, majority of us, are very ethical because of some of us who resort to unethical practices. We have received a bad name. Giving kickbacks has become a common practice in private care. Giving incentives, not only kickbacks, giving incentives well ahead of the month to a practicing doctor in order to get patients. It's all in this rat race. And I think we should remember that we spend years and years and years to serve. And I think this is not the way to serve by being unethical. Certainly, we should stand up for principles. Doctors are a source of happiness because he or she takes away the pain and sufferings of others. And this is the greatest source of happiness because chasing the dream to become a doctor is one end. It's not the only dream. It is also not only to pursue a career, but in pursuit of happiness is very, very important. That gives a great, immense joy. From time to time, you'll see some of these pink buildings. This is the historic Charminar. The Hyderabad is the only city in Asia Pacific region where so many buildings turn pink in the month of October. We are in October to create awareness about the importance of early detection. Ours is a noble profession, and we must consider a patient as a human being with feelings, not as a subject with an ailment. And that brings me to an important aspect of my message today is that we are not so good at communicating. This is presumably because we are not trained. Only very recently, a few years ago, communication skills have become a component of medicine, MBBS curriculum. And this deficiency certainly must be addressed because we as doctors have to deal with patients in the clinic, in the theatre, post-operative rounds, pre-operative rounds, giving bad news and also in speaking at meetings. And it's a distinct art of speaking medicine in the language of a non-medical man. And you can see this doctor in the cartoon. He's talking away even as the patient is walking into his chamber. And you can see this cartoon where the doctor is speaking and the poor patient is not able to even highlight why he came there. And you can see this cartoon, the OP consultation, where this doctor is talking down to the patient. The patient is sitting at the edge of the chair and cannot communicate. And you can look at the other cartoon where the doctor is listening to the patient. And that is what is important. As a doctor, we must have big ears. We must not sit down and start scribbling away as the patient is coming in. It's very important to have an eye contact. It's important to reassure the patient, comfort the patient, and then only you can treat the patient. Because I deal with patients affected with breast cancer day in and day out. Cancer doesn't just affect the body. It affects the mind and soul. So just treating the body will not help. However big, however great, however knowledgeable, however skilled you may be. If you don't comfort your patients, then you have not done any service at all. Listening, therefore, is very, very important. The patient comes to you so that you can hear him out. And we all know that 90% beyond diagnosis can be obtained by taking a good history and examination. Investigations add very little. And as doctors, we must be respectful of patients. You can see this cartoon where the doctors and his colleagues, students, are talking over the patient. The poor patient is very anxious. It's important to respect the patient's privacy. And this is not a scenario, which is a very common scenario, we should try to be away. You can look at this cartoon. The patient is lying in the bed. The doctor and his colleague is discussing about the diagnosis away from him. It is just like a patient comes, the patient's relatives ask the patient to go out, and you can imagine the agony that patient would undergo. And the doctor is expected to get the diagnosis told, informed to the relatives. The relatives want to hear about the diagnosis without the patient being there. And many a times I try to explain, and sometimes the relatives say, no doctor, you cannot talk to the patient. So I say, I'm sorry, I'm not the right doctor. Because it's very important, the patient is supreme for you. And it's very important, as you can see here, the doctor is sitting on the bed and talking to the patient. The relatives are secondary. The patient is first and foremost. And so that's very, very important to understand that we should not be discussing the diagnosis with the relatives first. It is important to take the patient into confidence, give that patient enough space, and then tell the diagnosis in an empathetic manner. And that brings me to breaking bad news. Patients are upset when doctors fail with words. Is there anything wrong in that? No. You look at this. Yes, it looks like cancer. Come in on Monday. We'll do a frozen section and we'll decide. Nothing is told about the diagnosis. Nothing is told about the treatment options. Nothing is told about the prognosis. How would the patient feel? That too, when he or she is diagnosed with cancer. And there are many questions that the patient wants to speak. Is it fatal? Will it be painful? Will I have the right treatment? How long do I have got to live? These are all valid questions. If you don't answer these questions and say, okay, I'm a great surgeon, and you come into theatre and I do the surgery, I mean, that's not the way that we should be doing as doctors. We should encourage participation from family members. It's important to be honest, not to give false reassurances. It's important to be empathetic and never deny hope to a patient. I see a lot of times doctors playing God. When the patient says how long I have to live, the doctor says few months, 6 weeks. Who are we to play God? We can say limited time, but we should not be saying things like you've got a few weeks or months or years to live. And a lot of times I also find that when patients express interest in alternate medicine, please don't rubbish it, because there is some benefit in alternate medicine. We don't know, but as long as the patient follows allopathic medicine, if he wishes to take alternate medicine as well, please don't deny hopes, because that patient is having a lot of hopes on that alternative medicine. We know that it may not work, but let's not rubbish it. As long as we can convince that patient to take allopathic treatment, if he wishes to take alternate treatment, as long as it doesn't contain substances which will interfere, we should always encourage them. And never forget that being a doctor is an honor and responsibility of a lifetime. Although we can cure sometimes, we can relieve often, but it is our paramount duty to be able to comfort the patient and the patient's relatives always. Just to break, this is the Raj Bhavan, the majestic Raj Bhavan in Hyderabad, the only Raj Bhavan in the country that turns pink and has turned pink for the third consecutive year, thanks to our Honorable Governor of Telangana for her unstinted support towards creating awareness about early detection. Human values. The picture that we see is one of the godfathers of radiology in the country, who recently passed away, Professor Kakala Subbarao. He came to our hospital, KIMS Hospitals, to felicitate me after getting the Padma Award. And he said that in addition to being a good surgeon whilst he was addressing the audience, what he said stuck to me. The importance of human values, courtesy, compassion, honesty, humility, empathy, sympathy, service, and a little bit of sacrifice. If you can follow these human values, you will not only be a great doctor, but you will also be a great human being. And I'd like to say that in this hustle bustle of practicing the art and science of medicine, we forget that there is more to life than just being a doctor. Having practiced medicine for a long time, close to more than 3 decades being a doctor, I realized that there is so much more in life than just being a surgeon. I've taken up several charitable initiatives. The most dear charitable initiative to me, to my heart, is the foundation, the Breast Cancer Foundation, through which we have been able to disrupt the way breast health care is delivered. In many ways, we have broken the taboo surrounding the word breast cancer in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. In addition to that, I have had the greatest fortune to adopt a village. 70% of people live in villages. The problems that you see in these villages, you will never see in urban India. And the joy that I have had serving Ibrahimpur, which is the remotest village in Medak district in Telangana, is immeasurable. All of us can do something or the other by adopting a village or taking up something which is larger than you. I think it's very important to take up something other than just what you're doing. And what about success? There is your success, there is my success, and there is no absolute success. And never ever define your success according to what others perceive. For others it may be different, but for you it should be different. You should be able to stand up on your own 2 feet and define what is success for you. And it will always be out of reach when you only focus on the competition. And the competition, again I refer to as rat race. To me, being successful means you're kind, you're compassionate, and you're a good-hearted person. That's it. That is success. Practicing meditation, creating a dream board, talking to the universe, staying positive, showing gratitude always. These are few tips that I have always followed, and I hope that this might enrich your life if you too practice. Create your own unique journey. Live your dream. Love your work. Laugh. Please do laugh. It's a serious profession. We should take time out to laugh. Don't be dead serious. Do things which are not important as well on a daily basis. Many of you will become great. Many of you will be surpassing all your juniors. You will be surpassing many expectations, and you will excel. You will travel abroad. Some of you will stay abroad as well. For me, although I lived in the UK for 10 years, my mother's illness was a wake-up call for me, the turning point when I realized that I must come back to my roots. I must serve my motherland. I must look after my parents. Otherwise, I had no plans. God made me realize through my mother's illness. So, never forget your mother. Never forget your mother. Never forget your motherland, wherever you may be. Never forget the place you were born and raised. And very importantly, never forget your mother tongue. I take great pride in the fact that I can read, write, and communicate much better in Telugu than in English. That speaks about my upbringing. And I think you must bring up your children in a similar way to preserve our culture. Our culture is one of the oldest cultures. Our languages are some of the oldest languages in the world. I think it is our bounden duty to actually preserve this. And we have many parents here. Before I conclude, to all the graduates, to all the undergraduates, to all the achievers, to all the award winners, you will be great. Who has made you great? It's your parents. They were there for you when you need them the most. As we age, they will grow older. You will be young. You will be dynamic. You will have a profession. You will have a family. But please ensure that you are there for them. You should be there for them when they need you the most. Please never forget that. Please don't. I feel very sorry to see several parents living in old age homes. Why? Why should they live in old age homes? They should not be. They should be cared for. They should be looked after by you. Because they look after you, you have a duty to look after them. So it's been too good an opportunity, too wonderful an opportunity to be here this morning, and with folded hands, very grateful to the managing trustees of the PSG group, and I wish you a bright and successful career, good health, happiness, and a contented, enriched life. Namaskar.
Dear sir, we are very impressed with all your work and your achievements.